Guten Tag, Guten Morgen. This is Troy Miller of AI.agency. We are a significance systems partner. That's me on the left right there. Now, the purpose of this tutorial is to briefly show you the overview document that I will email you. It's a PDF. It's a document that contains active links to the Japanese and German landscapes. And the other thing is I want to walk you through what the active PKD German landscape. Right here is a link to a couple of videos from Significant Systems. I encourage you to take a look at those before you jump into the landscapes. And before we go further, I also wanted to cover a question that I'm sure you'll have, namely, how exactly does this technology work? It's a conversation that could take hours if you are a data scientist, but in layman's term, they call it a narrative engine, and it's at the heart of the significant systems technology. It allows for stories to be measured, and it helps you find the strongest stories, and we all know that the strongest story wins. PKD is not just one story. We created a taxonomy of about 90 stories, we'll call them narratives, around the subject of PKD, both in Japan and in Germany. And our goal was to better understand what stories matter to doctors and patients, and through what media, so as to communicate with them more effectively. Now, the significant systems technology is based on computational linguistics. It's an AI technology that assigns numerical values to these words so they can be measured. It's also using graph and network theory, so the words, once measured, can be plotted on a graph and divided into categories of relevance. And that's what this figure here is. This is what the landscape, how it divides stories. Now, it may help you understand the usefulness of this tool by comparing it to a SWOT analysis. Now, the strengths can be those narratives that fall in the timeless and transformative categories. Weaknesses being those narratives that fall in the transient category. Opportunities being those narratives that have positive effect on the narrative, falling in the timeless and transformative quadrants. And threats being those narratives with negative effect on the story, falling in the transformative category. So let's dive into the German landscape, and I'll help you to navigate how to look at the data. This is the landscape. You see the 4 quadrants. These are the narratives. These are active. You can click on that and it will take you to that analysis. If we scroll down, we can see what is called a content efficiency analysis. The colors of the dots here, they matter. They can range from blue to red. Content efficiency measurement, a red dot means that the content is efficient in driving the narrative. Blue means that there's a gap between the needs of the narrative and the existing content that has been created. Here you can find categories. When we created the taxonomy, the rows were the keywords, the columns were the categories. Now, you'll find, after looking at the landscape, most of the narratives in the German landscape have fallen into the transient category. So these categories are not going to be much of as much use to you. If you scroll further down, you can see links to the transformational narratives, the timeless narratives, the tribal narratives, and the transient narratives. Now, in the document that I'll send to you, just scrolling down to the end, I have gone ahead and looked at each of the transient narratives because there's so many, and not all of them had significant content. So I've saved you time. You can only look at those that have an actual web link in the second column. All of these other narratives, there just was not enough significant content for it to register on the machine. And we'll take a look at what that looks like. Now you can either click on this dot and it'll take you to that narrative, or scroll down and click on the link. This narrative is transformational. It's blue in color, so the content efficiency is weak. You see the effect, orientation. It's a measure of the degree to which the narrative stimulates an emotional response. It can be active or passive, positive or negative. This is active, passive, positive, negative, disgusted, delighted, depressed, or dormant. The effect orientation of this narrative is actively negative. It's the content power index. The content power index is a measure of the power of individual pieces of content to capture and drive engagement with a narrative's core themes. This is independent of volume, means it does not matter how many likes are on that piece of content in Facebook or how many times a YouTube video was viewed. It's independent of volume. Understanding the most powerful content with proven communication power assists in the development of strategy for both content creation and management. You can click on this link and it will take you to an actual website. You can search within the content. You can rearrange it to lowest, highest. Okay. So that's the content power index. Let's look at the next tab. Let's skip emotional depth and go to amplification. This is the media power index. These are not individual pieces of content. Rather, the machine takes the individual pieces of content and groups them into vehicles of media that have power. So if you scroll down here, you can click on that bar and it will show you the two pieces on YouTube that have power. Click on that link. It will show you the 5 or 6 pieces of content on that website. On that link, show you the 1 piece of content. Next, let's look at emotional depth. This is a measure of the emotional tone of significant content. Understanding emotional drivers help you better understand and respond to the emotional impact of a narrative. Okay. Now, positive emotions are highlighted in green, negative emotions are highlighted in red. The deeper the red, the deeper the emotion. The width shows the degree to which an emotion contributes to the overall emotional response. Now, there was not that much content for this narrative, so there's not going to be a lot of emotion here, but as you can see, there's fear and expectation related to PKD cure. Next, let's go to exploration. Because this narrative is technical in nature, there's not a lot of visual content or images that amplify power, so nothing is shown here. But if you look down, the topical drivers of the narrative, they help you understand the most powerful themes within the narrative. The bigger the letters, the more powerful that topic. Let's look at another one. If you want to go back to the main landscape, you can click here. Let's click one in the timeless. You see the color? That content is quite efficient in conveying the narrative. It's in the timeless quadrant. You can read, it explains again how, what a timeless narrative is. It explains about the content efficiency. This explains the effect orientation, how this narrative stimulates an emotional response. And like many narratives, this has a neutral effect. Click on the content power. There's 4 pages of content, so there's a lot of content here. And you can click on one of the links, and it will take you there. To amplification. pfamxfam.org shows the most media power within this narrative. So click on it and scroll down, and it shows you the piece of content that has the most power within that media vehicle. Facebook is on here. There's quite a few Facebook sites listed. YouTube is on here. We go to exploration. There are a few visuals and a lot of topical drivers. There's nothing to click here. So there you have it. We encourage you and your teams to go live with the landscapes. Each one contains rich orientation to the issues, and it shows a detailed data set across the landscape within each narrative. There's a lot to look at. Read the orientation document. It explains the differences between the Japan landscape and the German landscape. I'll quickly show you the Japan landscape, and you'll see there's a huge difference in the number of transformational narratives in Japan as opposed to Germany. Timeless narratives, tribal narratives. It just looks very different. And one of the reasons could be that the German market seems to be connected more to the global PKD audience. There's very few German language content that came up. It's mainly English, global English content. So Again, that's explained in the overview document. So I look forward to speaking to you. Thank you very much for your time. Have a nice day.